Before Islam changed the course of history, Hamza was a mighty warrior known as the Lion of Mecca, proud uncle and fierce protector of a young man named Muhammad, whose message would shake the world. But when Muhammad began to speak of one true God, powerful enemies rose to crush this new faith, and Hamza faced impossible choices that would test his loyalty and courage like never before. Witness the brutal battles, secret betrayals, and the heart-wrenching sacrifice that turned Hamza into a timeless symbol of faith and bravery. What dark forces threatened the family? How did a fearless warrior become a martyr for a cause greater than himself? Watch closely, because the untold story of Hamza and Muhammad is filled with mystery, strength, and a legacy that still echoes today. Welcome to our channel. Before we continue this great and mighty story, help us like and share this video to spread the gospel of Allah across all nations. Now, let's get into the video. In the heart of the ancient city of Mecca, long before the world had heard of a great new faith, there lived a man known to all as Hamza. He was a member of the powerful Quraysh tribe, a tribe that ruled the city and protected its sacred house, the Kaaba. Hamza was no ordinary man. His tall, broad figure and fierce eyes made him stand out in any crowd. People called him the Lion of the Quraysh because of his unmatched strength and courage. From a young age, Hamza was known for his bravery. He could face danger without fear and was skilled in the arts of hunting and fighting. His voice was loud and commanding, and his presence alone could stop a quarrel before it began. Yet, beneath the tough exterior was a heart loyal to his family and his people. Among all the people Hamza cared for, none was closer to him than his young nephew, Muhammad. Muhammad was still a boy, quiet and thoughtful, often lost in his own world. Though different from the other children, Muhammad had a calmness that drew people in. Hamza watched over him protectively, proud of his nephew's gentle nature and the promise he seemed to hold. The bond between uncle and nephew was strong. Hamza often walked beside Muhammad in the bustling streets of Mecca, sometimes joking with the merchants or lifting the spirits of the poor. Muhammad admired Hamza's strength and kindness, and Hamza saw in Muhammad a special light, even if he did not yet understand what it meant. Mecca itself was a city of contrasts. It was filled with merchants trading goods from faraway lands, children playing near the wells, and travelers coming to visit the holy Kaaba. But it was also a place of traditions and power struggles. The Quraysh tribe held control tightly, and strength was respected above all else. Hamza's name was spoken with respect by friends and fear by enemies. Even as a young man, Hamza's life was shaped by the responsibilities that came with his family and tribe. He was known to be quick to defend those who were treated unfairly, sometimes with his words, other times with his mighty hand. Stories of his courage spread through the desert lands, earning him many allies and a few enemies. At times, Hamza would sit quietly by the fire, telling Muhammad stories of their ancestors, brave warriors and wise leaders who had built the city of Mecca. These stories were not just about battles. They spoke of honor, loyalty, and the importance of standing strong in the face of danger. Muhammad listened carefully, feeling the weight of his family's history. But beneath the surface of Mecca's proud people, there were whispers of change. Some wondered if the city's ways, built on old customs and many gods, could last forever. Hamza, like many others, did not know what the future held. He only knew that he must protect his family and the city he loved. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the desert hills, Hamza walked home with Muhammad by his side. The city was alive with sounds, merchants calling out their goods, children laughing, and the soft prayers of those at the Kaaba. Hamza's mind was heavy with thoughts. He looked at Muhammad, the boy who seemed so quiet yet carried a spark in his eyes. "Be strong, young one," Hamza said quietly, placing his hand on Muhammad's shoulder. "The world will test you, but remember who you are." Muhammad looked up, curious but unsure. "Who am I, uncle?" Hamza smiled, though his eyes held a seriousness beyond his years. "You are part of this family, part of Mecca, but more than that, you are part of something greater. Time will tell." These words lingered in the air, full of mystery and promise. Neither Hamza nor Muhammad knew exactly what was coming, but their lives were about to change in ways no one could imagine. For now, Hamza remained the mighty lion, strong, fearless, and devoted. But the path ahead would demand more than strength alone. It would call for faith, sacrifice, and courage that touched the soul. And so, the story of Hamza and Muhammad began, not just as uncle and nephew, but as part of a great destiny waiting to unfold. The city of Mecca, with its towering stone walls and bustling marketplaces, was a place of many voices. Voices of merchants shouting their goods, travelers praying at the Kaaba, and priests calling to idols that stood in every corner. Yet beneath this lively noise was a heavy shadow, a time when darkness ruled the hearts of many. Before the message of Islam reached its people, Mecca was lost in worship of many gods. Stone statues and carved idols filled the sacred house and its surroundings. People believed these idols held power to bless or punish, and they traveled long distances to offer sacrifices and gifts. But behind the bright ceremonies were acts of cruelty and selfishness. The rich and powerful controlled the city with an iron fist. They lived in grand houses while the poor struggled to find food or shelter. Disputes were settled not by justice, but by who had the strongest tribe or the sharpest sword. Women were often treated as property, their voices silenced, their freedoms limited. Many were trapped in pain and fear. In the midst of this, young Muhammad grew up carrying a heavy heart. Though quiet and thoughtful, he was deeply troubled by the injustice around him. At night, he would stare up at the stars, searching for answers. The idols in the Kaaba did not comfort him. He felt their cold silence, and inside, a longing for something real, something true. Muhammad's heart was filled with questions no one seemed able to answer. Why was there so much suffering? Why did people turn to idols that could not speak or help? He often wondered if there was a single God who watched over everything, kind and just. But these thoughts set him apart from many in Mecca, making him feel alone. Hamza, his uncle, noticed these moments of sadness in Muhammad. Yet, Hamza's world was different. For him, strength and loyalty were everything. To protect family and tribe was to live with honor. He believed in the old ways and was proud of his place in the city. Hamza's fierce pride meant he never backed down from a challenge or insult. If anyone threatened his family, he was the first to stand against them. Despite the roughness of his exterior, Hamza cared deeply. He was quick to defend those he loved, but could also be harsh to those who crossed him. His voice thundered in the streets when angered, and his sword was ready if words failed. Many feared him, but his loyalty was a shield for his family. The growing tension in Mecca troubled both men, though in different ways. Muhammad sought peace and truth in a world filled with injustice. Hamza prepared to defend what he held dear with courage and strength. The city itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting for something to change. Stories spread among the people, stories of corruption, broken promises, and secret plots. Powerful leaders grew richer, while others suffered. Some whispered that the idols were powerless and that Mecca's glory was fading. But no one dared speak openly against the traditions, fearing punishment. Muhammad's sadness deepened as he watched his people trapped in a cycle of cruelty and false hope. At times, he felt the weight of loneliness pressing down on his shoulders. Yet, he kept searching for the light, guided by an inner voice that would not be silenced. One day, Muhammad shared his worries with Hamza. They sat beneath the hot desert sun, the city's noise fading around them. "Uncle," Muhammad said softly, "how can we live with so much pain and injustice? Why do people worship stones and forget kindness?" Hamza looked at him, eyes sharp and steady. "The world is harsh, nephew. Strength keeps us safe. You cannot change the city with words alone." Muhammad's gaze held hope. "But what if there is a better way, a truth that will bring peace?" Hamza's voice grew firm. "If such a truth comes, it must be strong enough to face fire and sword, and it must have lions like us to protect it." The words hung between them, full of promise and warning. Both knew the city's old ways could not last forever, but neither yet understood how their lives would soon be changed forever. As days turned into nights, shadows lengthened over Mecca. The time of idols was nearing its end. The city's stones held secrets, and destinies were being written in silence. Hamza continued to guard his family fiercely, ready to fight if needed. Muhammad, with his heart full of questions, prepared for a path few could see. The struggle between old and new was about to begin, and the choices they made would echo through history. The nights in Mecca were often quiet, but one night changed everything forever. Muhammad, the thoughtful young man who had long carried questions in his heart, was alone in the cave of Hira, high above the city. The air was cool, and the stars shimmered like scattered jewels. Suddenly, a powerful presence filled the cave. A voice spoke to him, commanding and clear, "Read!" Muhammad trembled, unsure of what he heard. The voice repeated, "Read!" Overwhelmed, he felt a weight upon his chest, a mixture of fear and awe. This was the beginning, the moment the message of Islam first reached him. It was a message unlike anything Mecca had ever known, a call to believe in one true God, to seek justice and kindness, and to turn away from the idols. When Muhammad returned to his family, his heart raced with the secret he carried. He told his wife Khadijah, who believed in him immediately and offered her support. But beyond his closest circle, the news was met with confusion and fear. Word slowly spread through Mecca that Muhammad claimed to receive a message from God. Many in the city were startled. Some whispered behind closed doors, unsure whether this was truth or madness. The leaders of the Quraysh, who held power through the old customs and the worship of idols, felt threatened by this new idea. They feared losing their control over the people and the city. Hamza, proud and fierce, watched these events with suspicion. The message his nephew spoke of challenged everything he had known and fought for. the strength of the tribe, the honor of their traditions, the gods that had protected their ancestors, now all seemed at risk. At first, Hamza kept his distance. He did not openly reject Muhammad, but he did not join the growing group of followers either. His heart was torn between loyalty to family and loyalty to the ways that had made Mecca strong. He watched silently, waiting to see what this new faith would bring. Meanwhile, those who accepted Muhammad's message faced great hardship. Many were ridiculed, beaten, or driven from their homes. The powerful leaders grew more angry, determined to stop what they called a dangerous rebellion. The tension in Mecca grew thick. The streets buzzed with arguments. Families were divided. Friends turned against one another. The city stood on the edge of a great change, but no one could say what the future held. Muhammad's calm and gentle nature drew more people to listen. He spoke of mercy, justice, and a God who loved all people equally. Yet, each word was a challenge to the old order. One day, Hamza confronted his nephew in the marketplace. The sun was high, and merchants shouted their prices. People paused to watch the two men, sensing the weight of their words. "Muhammad," Hamza said, his voice low but firm, "these stories you tell, how can they break the traditions of our ancestors? What of the gods who have watched over us for generations?" Muhammad met his uncle's gaze steadily. "The truth cannot be stopped by fear or pride. One God created all things, and He alone deserves worship. The idols are nothing but stone and wood." Hamza's jaw tightened. "You ask me to turn from my people, from my tribe. I am loyal to my family and the strength we have built. But this shakes everything." Muhammad's eyes softened. "Uncle, I do not ask you to turn away from family. I ask you to seek truth and justice. The strength you cherish can protect what is right, not only what is old." Their conversation ended with no clear answer, but the tension between them grew. Hamza's pride made him cautious, but a small part of him wondered if Muhammad spoke words that could change not just Mecca, but the world. As the days passed, more people joined Muhammad's cause. Their numbers were small, but their faith was fierce. They faced hostility but did not waver. Mecca's leaders grew desperate. They tried to silence Muhammad by threats and cruelty. The city's peace shattered under the weight of fear and rebellion. Hamza stood at a crossroads, his heart divided between the love for his family and the traditions he had always defended. The city he knew was changing, and he had to decide where he would stand. In the quiet moments, Hamza watched Muhammad from afar. The boy he once protected was now a man with a mission that could unite or destroy their world. The light that had come to Muhammad in the cave was not just a message, it was the beginning of a new era. And whether Hamza chose to join or resist, the path ahead would demand courage unlike any before. The future was uncertain, filled with challenges and sacrifice. But one thing was clear: Mecca would never be the same. The sun beat down on the dusty streets of Mecca, but the heat did little to calm the storm that was about to unfold. Muhammad had been walking quietly, sharing the message of the one true God, when a group of men from the Quraysh, angered and threatened by his words, surrounded him. Their faces were hard and unforgiving, their voices sharp with mockery. "Why do you speak against our gods?" one shouted. "You bring shame to our tribe." Muhammad stood firm, refusing to back down. His calm eyes met theirs, filled with the strength of his faith. But the men were relentless. They pushed him, mocked him, and laughed cruelly at his message. From a distance, Hamza watched, his heart pounding fiercely. He had always been proud, quick to anger, and a protector of his family. Seeing his nephew, the boy he had once walked beside, treated with such cruelty, ignited something deep within him. His chest tightened with rage as he stepped forward, his voice booming like thunder through the narrow street. "Enough!" Hamza roared. The men turned, startled by the sudden interruption. Hamza's tall figure, muscles tense and eyes blazing, moved between Muhammad and the angry crowd. He raised his hand and struck one of the men, sending him stumbling back. "Do not lay a finger on him," Hamza declared. "He is my family, and I will not allow you to harm him." The crowd fell silent, surprised by Hamza's fierce defense. Whispers spread quickly. Hamza, the mighty lion, had chosen his side. That night, as the city slept beneath the stars, Hamza's mind raced. The world he had known, the world of strength, power, and ancient gods, was shaking. Muhammad's courage and steadfastness had touched something in his heart he could no longer deny. In the quiet of his home, Hamza sat alone, wrestling with his thoughts. Pride told him to stay loyal to the old ways, to protect his tribe's traditions. But love and hope called him toward a new path, a path that promised justice, mercy, and truth. The next morning, word spread across Mecca like wildfire. Hamza had declared his faith in the one true God. His voice, once used to fight for power, now spoke words of belief and unity. Many were shocked. How could the Lion of Mecca turn from the strength of his ancestors to follow a new faith? Some whispered fears of change, while others saw a glimmer of hope. Hamza's acceptance was not just a personal decision, it was a powerful sign. If the mighty lion could embrace this message, perhaps others could too. Yet, beneath the triumph was a quiet fear. Hamza knew the road ahead would be hard. Choosing faith meant facing enemies, risking honor, and standing against the crowd. But his heart was firm. For the first time, Hamza understood that true strength came not from pride or power alone, but from standing for what was right, even when it meant sacrifice. That day marked a new chapter for Hamza, Muhammad, and Mecca. The city's ancient stones held their breath, waiting for the courage of lions to awaken the hearts of its people. And so, the lion roared, not with anger, but with the strength of faith. The winds of change swept through Mecca like a desert storm, stirring dust and stirring hearts. With Hamza's declaration, the fledgling community of believers grew bolder. The quiet whispers of a new faith became calls for justice and truth. But with courage came danger. Hamza stepped into his new role with fierce determination. His presence was a shield for the weak and a warning to those who sought to harm the believers. Wherever there was cruelty or injustice against his people, Hamza's voice rose like thunder, and his sword flashed with purpose. The streets of Mecca buzzed with tension. Opponents of the new faith plotted to silence Muhammad and his followers, but none dared approach when Hamza was near. His reputation as a warrior, unmatched in strength and skill, made enemies think twice. At the markets, in the homes, and even near the sacred Kaaba, Hamza stood as a guardian. Stories spread of how he defended the faithful against violence, never backing down, even when outnumbered. His bravery inspired others to stand firm, knowing that the Lion of Mecca walked beside them. Hamza's loyalty to Muhammad deepened. No longer just an uncle protecting his family, he was now a brother in faith. Together, They faced growing hostility with unbreakable resolve. Yet beneath his fierce exterior, Hamza carried the weight of responsibility. He knew that every battle risked more than just life. It threatened the survival of the message they carried. The enemies were ruthless, and the stakes grew higher each day. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the mountains, Hamza gathered with fellow believers. The air was thick with anticipation and fear. The next great test loomed on the horizon, a battle that would decide the future of their faith. Hamza's voice was steady as he spoke. "We fight not for power or revenge, but for truth and justice. Our cause is just, and God is with us." The believers listened, their hearts steadying. Hamza's courage was their beacon in the dark, his strength their hope. As preparations began, the city seemed to hold its breath. The Lion of Mecca was ready to roar louder than ever before, not just with the sound of his voice, but with the power of his unwavering faith. The calm before the storm was broken by whispers of war. Mecca's leaders, enraged by the growing strength of Muhammad and his followers, began preparing to crush the new faith once and for all. The city buzzed with fear and anticipation as both sides braced for the inevitable clash. Hamza felt the weight of the coming battle heavy on his shoulders. The streets that once echoed with life now carried an eerie silence, broken only by the clatter of armor and the murmur of plans whispered in shadows. Every face he passed held the tension of a city on the edge of destruction. In the cool evenings, Hamza would stand atop the hills overlooking Mecca, his gaze sharp and unyielding. He thought of the people who followed Muhammad, men and women who believed in a future built on truth, no matter the cost. He knew the fight ahead would not only test their swords, but their spirits. The Muslim camp grew restless. Murmurs of doubt mingled with determination. Hamza sensed the fear beneath the brave faces. Many knew this battle could decide their fate forever. Yet his presence brought strength. Wherever he moved, courage seemed to follow. Among the believers, the prophet's words stirred hope and caution. Muhammad urged patience and unity, reminding them that victory belonged to those who held fast to faith. But even the prophet could not deny the dangers lurking in the shadows. Mecca's forces gathered, their numbers vast and fierce. The once proud city now threatened to become a battlefield soaked in blood. The powerful warriors of Quraysh sharpened their weapons, their eyes burning with a mixture of anger and fear. Hamza's heart beat fiercely as the day of battle drew near. He could feel the tension crackling like lightning in the desert air. This was more than a fight for land or power. It was a battle for the soul of a people. On the eve of battle, Hamza sought out Muhammad. Their eyes met, heavy with unspoken fears and unbreakable trust. "Tomorrow we face darkness," Hamza said, voice low but steady. Muhammad nodded. "And we stand with the light, no matter the cost." As the night deepened, stars watched silently over Mecca. The city held its breath, waiting for the dawn that would bring war. The shadows gathered, thick and heavy, but so did the courage of those who dared to face them. The battle was coming. The roar of the lion was about to echo through history. The morning sun rose over the plains near Uhud, casting long shadows on the ground where fate awaited. The air was thick with tension as the two armies faced each other, the Muslims brave but outnumbered, and the Quraysh forces hungry for revenge. Silence hung heavy, broken only by the sound of footsteps and the clinking of armor. Hamza stood tall among the warriors, his eyes sharp with determination. His heart was steady, but deep inside, he sensed the weight of what was to come. This battle was unlike any before. It was a test not just of strength, but of faith and sacrifice. The fight erupted suddenly, fierce and unrelenting. Swords clashed, shields shattered, and the cries of battle filled the air. Hamza moved through the chaos like a force of nature, striking down those who threatened his brothers in faith. His roar echoed across the battlefield, a beacon of courage that lifted the spirits of the believers. For a time, it seemed the Muslims would triumph. The enemy began to retreat, and hope surged in the hearts of the faithful. But beneath the surface, a deadly plan was unfolding. Unseen by most, a group of archers stationed on a hill above the battlefield abandoned their posts. They left their position, tempted by the spoils of war below, despite orders to hold firm. This betrayal opened a door for the Quraysh to regroup and launch a surprise attack. The tide of battle turned quickly. The Quraysh surged forward with renewed fury, catching the Muslims off guard. Confusion spread like wildfire. The lines that once held strong now faltered. Hamza fought fiercely, defending those around him with unmatched valor. Yet in the midst of the chaos, he was singled out by a cruel enemy. Washi, a skilled slave-turned warrior, was tasked with killing Hamza. His heart heavy with the burden of this mission, Washi moved silently through the turmoil. As Hamza engaged in battle, striking down foes, Washi seized his chance. With a swift, deadly throw, he struck Hamza with a spear. The mighty lion fell, wounded and shocked. The sound of Hamza's fall rippled across the battlefield. Muhammad, from a distance, felt a deep, piercing sorrow. His uncle, his protector, the lion who had roared for truth and justice, was struck down. But Hamza's story did not end in silence. His sacrifice became a symbol, a testament to the price of faith and the strength found in standing for what is right. The Muslims mourned deeply. Tears flowed freely as the news spread. Yet, amidst the grief, a fierce resolve burned brighter. Hamza's death was not a defeat, but a call to stand stronger. Muhammad's heart shattered, but he remained steady, carrying the weight of loss with quiet dignity. The community, united by sorrow and faith, vowed to honor Hamza's legacy. The battle left scar on bodies, hearts, and the very soul of the city. Yet, it also planted seeds of courage and sacrifice that would grow for generations. Hamza's martyrdom was remembered not just as a tragic loss, but as the roar of a lion that would never be forgotten. The dust of the Battle of Uhud had barely settled when the name of Hamza began to echo through the hearts of the Muslim community like a timeless song. Though he had fallen in the fiercest fight, his spirit remained unbroken, shining brighter than ever in the memories and actions of those who loved him. Hamza was no longer just a man. He had become a symbol, a lion whose courage and sacrifice inspired countless others to stand firm in the face of adversity. His story was told in every gathering, whispered in moments of doubt, and shouted in times of courage. The pain of his loss was deep, but it carried with it a powerful lesson. True strength was found not only in battle, but in faith and loyalty to what was right. Muhammad, his nephew and the bearer of God's message, often spoke of Hamza's bravery, reminding the believers that the path of truth demands sacrifice, but it also promises honor beyond this life. The community, once shaken by the loss, found new resolve. They knew the road ahead would be difficult, but with hearts like Hamza's leading the way, they were ready to face whatever trials awaited. The lion's roar had not died. It had transformed into a call to action, urging every believer to rise and protect their faith with courage and devotion. Stories of Hamza's life spread far beyond Mecca. People from distant lands heard of the uncle who had defended his family and faith with unmatched bravery. His name became synonymous with loyalty, strength, and unwavering belief in justice. In the years that followed, the Muslim community grew stronger and more united. Each battle, each hardship was met with the memory of Hamza's sacrifice. Mothers told their children about the lion who stood tall against tyranny, teaching them that courage is a light that can never be extinguished. Even in the quiet moments when the noise of the world faded, the legacy of Hamza whispered in the wind, reminding all who listened that standing for truth is the greatest victory of all. Muhammad himself carried the weight of loss and hope together. Though his heart mourned deeply, he never wavered. He understood that Hamza's death was part of a greater plan, a test of faith that would shape the future. The lessons from Hamza's life became a guide for generations: loyalty to family and faith, the willingness to sacrifice for justice, and the courage to stand when others fall. These were the gifts he left behind. And so, the story of Hamza ended not with silence, but with a song of hope. A song that told of a lion who once walked among men, who faced darkness without fear, and whose spirit still roared in the hearts of those who believe. The city of Mecca changed forever, shaped by the faith and sacrifice of those like Hamza. And as the sun rose each day over the desert, it carried with it the promise of a new dawn, a future built on courage, honor, and the eternal light of truth.